Hello, this is Stephen Dominguez, the S in the BS Podcast Network. Please enjoy this fine podcast.
It's a fake. The real one was sold in '98 on the black market. Now it hangs
over the bed of the Sultan of Hajar. Excuse me.
Excuse me, miss. The other night you took something that doesn't belong to you. Stealing's not polite.
Is it stealing if you steal from another thief?
Who are you?
Someone interested in the same man you are.
Is that right?
I believe Mr. Luther has a photograph that belongs to me.
Did you get it?
As it happens, no, I didn't. The data you copied is military-grade encryption.
You know, I bet with that dress, 9 out of 10 men would let you get away with anything.
But you're the 10.
I'm guessing I'm the first. I see through that babe in the woods. You don't know me, but I've known a few women like you.
Oh, I don't think you've ever known a woman like me. You know, it's true what they say about little boys. Born with no natural inclination to share. I didn't steal your drive. I borrowed it. You'll find it in the glove compartment of your car. Mr. Wayne?
What are you? I'm Batman.
Who are you?
My name is Bond. Bond. I'm Batman.
Name's Bond.
James Bond. I'm Batman. Bond. James Bond. I'm Batman. I'm Batman. This is the Batman versus James Bond show. The show covering everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. And now, here's your host, Brian Thomas.
Three, two, one. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. The name's Thomas, Brian Thomas, and I am your host. And this is the show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. It's great to be back. Oh, yeah, it is June. Summer is happening. And, yeah, there's movies to talk about. I hope all of you have had a fantastic week. Mine was excellent, and it's about to get a little crazier because I have a very special guest returning to the show. That's right. I'd like to welcome back to the show director of The Great Chicago Filmmaker and the author of the Films of Sam Mendes, Mr. Michael Jolls. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, buddy.
Oh no! Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, as you can, as the audience can tell, we we might have kept in touch, and we might have that kind of rapport, if you will. So that's what I mean about things are about to get crazy. It's like having. Which Joker would you be? I you know what? I'll compare you to more the Jack Nicholson Joker. So I was watching Batman '89 last night because there's going to be chaos, but it's not quite of anarchy and chaos of the Heath Ledger Joker. I don't think it's quite up to that par. Maybe like Mr. Silva. There you go. There, that would be even better.
Oh, good. Well,
yeah.
Wait till they get a little. Oh boy, Brian, we're two white guys, Generation Y dudes, about to talk about Wonder Woman, female comic book characters, and feminism. More than likely, both of our careers are going to be sabotaged within 24 hours of this podcast being broadcasted. So let's get nuts.
Yes. Come on, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. People love that. I real quick, behind the scenes, Instagram, I posted the picture for that, and people just a couple people send me messages saying, I love that Batman movie. It's still my favorite. And I can't agree more. And if I were to go back and do my rankings right now, I would say, yeah, Batman '89 is probably still in the top 2, at least. But, yeah, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Before we jump into things and things get super crazy and get nuts, just a reminder, BatmanVSBond.com. That's right. You know the name. Go there for all latest shows and more content. And you can also find the Batman vs. James Bond show on the BS Podcast Network. That's bspodcastnetwork.com. Find my show and a whole bunch of other great shows on there. Now, let's get down to business. So before we even talk about a certain movie, and if you read the title, you know what we're about to talk about, but let's get a little recap about Mr. And I'm saying your last name correctly, right? I always just call you Michael, but it's Jolls, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Let's get a little recap of Mr. Michael Jolls, and I'll just say that if I had an intern, I would have my intern go back and listen to the last time that you and I recorded last fall of 2016. And I usually, when a guest comes on here, I always ask what's their favorite Batman movie. And by surprise, you said The Dark Knight Rises. And I'm quoting you here. It's like quoting an author. That's exactly what I'm doing. Personal struggles of an individual going through a dramatic event of some kind. The Dark Knight is the ultimate story of that emotional, heavy, and great completion of a wonderful trilogy. Do you still stand by that?
No, it's Batman and Robin. No, I changed it.
Okay.
No, of course I do. Yeah. No, I still think it's the best.
Right.
I'm
I'm still surprised about that. I don't know why. I mean, and I still like The Dark Knight Rises. I really do. I still would say, 89 or Dark Knight and Batman Begins would be up there, but it's still one that, compared to the slew of movies that have been coming out, comic book movies, which we will be talking about also, The Dark Knight Rises still beats the competition, or a majority of those.
Well, can I throw in one thing there? This is more of a personal note. My favorite has always been the Batman 89 movie.
Right.
I think it's just because of personal reasons. But when I saw The Dark Knight Rises, which, at one little asterisk side note, I saw it at midnight. I didn't really want to go at midnight, but I was sort of dragged along with it. Mm-hmm. So I saw it, first off, no knowledge of Aurora.
Yeah. But
secondly, when the film ended, I was so emotionally revved by it. And I remember thinking, like, right there on the spot, like, no, none of the other Batman films ever did that to me. Mm-hmm. So clearly this is, in my opinion, the best. And this is because it's a certain kind of emotional reaction. But anyway, that's just my two cents.
Oh, Alfred. I mean, I won't go into spoilers, but yeah, Alfred. Any scene that Michael Caine is in, he nearly makes me cry every time. Yeah, he really does. That's all right. Let's see. You said Christian Bale is your favorite Dark Knight, if I'm not mistaken. Batman.
Yeah.
Okay. And
my favorite Batman.
Okay. And your favorite James Bond movie would be From Russia with Love and Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still stand by that.
Okay. And the thing that this is definitely going to be a subject I'd like to speak more with you about tonight, because you always have me thinking about this, is that you said before that world events are what shapes pop culture, considering terrorism such as 9/11, spandex superheroes don't work. Now it's about a fictional character living in and functioning in the post 9/11 real world. So, I think those are definitely two very true quotes that we'll be touching on tonight also. So, before we get into our review, I know I keep teasing this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the backstory of the Wonder Woman film, and please interject. What's so interesting about this is we've had so many, there's been, I can't even keep track of how many superhero movies there are out there. And there was a point where, I would try to see as many as I could. Now I'm being so picky about it. But when it comes to the character of Wonder Woman, I really didn't know much about her aside from the fact that, what's her name? Yeah. Oh my God. Who played her in the TV show? And see, I'm drawing a blank right. Linda Carter. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Linda.
Yeah. Wow. It's going to be that kind of night. Linda Carter played her in the TV show, and I don't even know the year of the TV show. I would say it's probably in the 70s. Is that correct?
Late 70s to 80s.
Okay. But before even that, Wonder Woman was created 76 years ago by a psychologist named William Moulton. Just a quick history lesson. Bear with me, guys. Batman and Superman have had a total of 15 movies in 4 decades. 0 for Wonder Woman. Okay? Make sure you take this into account. There was such a long ongoing battle to make this movie. Did you know, and you'll probably find this interesting, that if you didn't know this already, that Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman was linked to the Wonder Woman movie at one time? Excuse me.
I was not aware of that, no.
Yeah, that's really interesting considering coming off of last year of a all-female cast of Ghostbusters. Ivan Reitman, I think, only got executive producer credits at most. But I find that very interesting considering, Ghostbusters is definitely one of my favorite childhood movies. It still is a great movie to this day. I would have been very curious to see what his adaptation would have been. In 1999, Matrix producer Joel Silver, he produced the Lethal Weapon movies, the Die Hard movies. He actually had the rights, and he held on to them for 10 years. And his plan was to bring actress Sandra Bullock on at the time. And I'm going to guess that was right after he produced Demolition Man with Sandra Bullock. I can't picture Sandra Bullock as Wonder Woman. I really can't, even though she is a great actress.
A younger one, you probably could. I was going to throw in there with what you were saying. When Linda Carter's show was around in 79 and what we're talking about, this is when, and this is something that I did not live through, I do not remember, but that's when the women's movement was legitimately flourishing, when it was, not that it hasn't stopped being a thing, but that it was something really that the culture was acknowledging. And a year after the Linda Carter show comes out, you had Charlie's Angels come out. And then another, in these two shows I'd never even heard of, was Bionic Woman, and the show called The New Avengers, no relation to the Marvel. And these were also shows about women superheroes. So Wonder Woman came out in the mid-70s, right when this was becoming a trend that Hollywood was working with.
Right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's another thing, is the topic of leading actor, female-led movies, I guess you will, if you will, and especially superheroes. Yeah, we've seen it in the TV shows. I mean, kind of jumping all around here, Xena, Warrior Princess. Trying to think of another one that you had. I mean, well, okay, if you want to say was it Red Sonja? When Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie of the Conan movies. I mean, that would be, it's very slim pickings, I would say, with, the amount of, female-led superhero movies out there.
No, because they're all, for the most shows. Part, oh, no. It was never a woman's, it was all guys. And if there was female characters, they were always side characters or sidekicks, and they're all overtly sexualized. Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn. Those are all villains from Batman, but the point is that when you had comic book characters, and even in Xena Warrior Princess, there is something about them highlighting the sexuality of the woman character. It's more about how sexy she looks and how, than it was actually about being a superhero. Batman or Superman, well, maybe Superman, I don't know. But with the guys, there wasn't this emphasis on being a dashing looking while you're fighting crime, I guess. I don't, you know what I'm saying? So
I do. Yeah. Well, I will say that around the time of Xena, now this is me. I mean, you're an 80s kid too, right?
I'm sorry?
Are you an 80s kid?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm at the tail end of the 80s.
Okay. Damn it. I had a feeling I was older. I will say that I remember, I never watched the show. I remember Xena Warrior Princess being out. I think it was more successful than, say, Conan the Barbarian with Kevin Sorbo. But then around the same time is when you had TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And that had a big following. And the reason I bring that up is because Joel Silver hired a certain screenwriter that created that, Joss Whedon, back in 2005. His name has obviously come up a lot more, especially on Twitter this last week. He did write an adaptation of Wonder Woman, but as he quoted 2 years later after he left, he said, "I had a take on the film that, well, nobody liked. So, it never saw the light of day, unfortunately." But, one would say that, he is in touch, I guess, with writing a female. He knows how to write that kind of a character.
Right.
I like I said, never watched Buffy. I think, didn't he do, what is it, Dollhouse? Did he do that?
No,
that wasn't him.
I don't know. I know he had his hand in Toy Story, but
okay. Toy Story. Well, obviously the Avengers. He's even going to be doing Batgirl. And as I reported within the last week, he's going to be helping to finish Justice League. So it's kind of ironic that he ends up coming back into this universe, and he's going to still be able to get to work with Wonder Woman, which I really like. And say what you will, MCU, DCU. We know that we in the last 2 hours, Michael and I have had a very long discussion with the Twitter sphere, and were there some great comments on there. But I think we can all agree that we're all on the same side at the end of the day. If you happen to be a fan of one more than the other, that's okay. When if the other team, whatever. But at the end of the day, all we want to see is a great movie, and if that's your thing, that's cool. So moving on here real quick. Warner Brothers, sorry, dogs are barking. Warner Brothers also, Warner Brothers also had the idea, because of the success with Batman Returns in 1992 of Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, they wanted to obviously do a Catwoman solo movie, but it was delayed so much that instead they decided to do the 2004 Halle Berry Catwoman movie, which grossed, mark my words, a total of $82 million worldwide. Not on an opening weekend, but worldwide, which means that sucker tanked.
For those of you at home, please stop listening to this podcast. Go onto YouTube and find the honest trailer for Catwoman with Halle Berry. You will be royally entertained for the next 6 minutes. We will see you when you get back.
As I sip my water. Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Honest Trailers nailed it with that one.
I have not seen that one. Honest Trailers does some good work, though. And
I actually did see the Halle Berry Catwoman when I took a comic book film class back in 2013.
Yeah,
and I was more on it. I wasn't really taking it. I was friends with the professor. I have to name drop him here, Dr. Lawrence Knapp, who is one of the greatest film minds out there, and I'm honored to have taken classes with him. And he was going to do a comic book film class, and he sort of let me sit in there and watch and comment on stuff. And so I kind of binged on the comic book films over the course of the semester. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I've never seen this Halle Berry movie. Now will be the opportune moment. And yeah, it's a 4-star masterpiece. It's so good.
I remember the commercials for it, and I remember the song from it, but that's about it. And the song got way more hype and ended up doing a whole lot better. And that's 2004 for you. But at the same time, a year later, 20th Century Fox decided to attempt it with Jennifer Garner starring as Elektra from Daredevil, and that grossed even lower at $57 million. So what they asked the producer of Catwoman, and who knows where this lady is at this time, but her name's Denise Denovi, and she told Entertainment Weekly at the time, quoted, "America's not ready for a female superhero. Men don't want to see it, especially teenage boys, and it seems like women don't want to either." So, thinking back to 2004, 2005, that's... Well, you've said it before. Bourne was just coming into play with that. Both Bourne movies would have been released by then. Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy. Batman Begins just was getting ready to was being filmed at the time, a reboot of Batman, a whole different telling of Batman, and that would be released in June of 2005, which is coming up on an anniversary, by the way. Besides the point, though, director Patty Jenkins... she directed a little movie called Monster, which you will be able to talk about also. She was meeting with Warner Brothers, and the problem was, though, that she had to decline it because she was pregnant with a son at the time. But luckily, she kept in touch. Nothing really amounted at the time, but during that span also, we had a series of films called The Hunger Games. And it was with a female lead, and that grossed $3 billion around the world. And this kind of was the way of saying, okay, the end of the belief that boys and men don't want to go see female heroes is over. There's still no explanation, though, why movies like, say, an Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Suicide Squad, Deadpool, even Guardians made it to the screen before Wonder Woman. And this is an article I was reading in Entertainment Weekly, but it's just that it's a shame that, all this time, and when you hear the big three, especially with the comic book movies, or comic book characters, if you will, it's Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Would you agree to that, Michael?
Oh, yeah. No, it is. With the DC characters, it's definitely them.
Okay.
They're the ones that you see plastered everywhere.
Yeah, you can't go anywhere without seeing a Superman t-shirt, a Batman bumper sticker, or some kind of Wonder Woman earrings or whatever. Even before the movie came out. And they're so symbolic. But... Go ahead.
There's something I was going to point out. There's a book out called War, Politics, and Superheroes by Mark D. Apollo. Forgive me if I mispronounce that name. And he does a little segment on Wonder Woman. He points out a really good point. He goes, you know what Wonder Woman's biggest battle is? And I think this book was written in late 2010. He says Wonder Woman's biggest battle has been trying to get a place at the table with the big boys, and not just Batman and Superman, but Wolverine, with Spider-Man, with Iron Man. She's never gotten to get up to that, to get beyond basically being something slapped on a lunchbox or a cute pair of socks or some sort of T-shirt or what, she hasn't really gotten to that point, at least until this weekend.
Right. Yeah. Now, and things have changed. So let's, I'll stop there with my backstory. I'm sure I could go on forever with that. So let me go into the synopsis. Okay, there goes my dog again. And I'm going to feed her to Wonder Woman and the lasso of truth.
No, let him on the show. Let the dog on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let the dog on the show.
Right. It's the new sidekick to Wonder Woman, Ivana, the super dog. Before she was a Wonder Woman, she was Diana, princess of the Amazonians, trained to be an unconquerable warrior. Raised on a sheltered island paradise, Diana meets an American pilot, Chris Pine, who tells her about the massive conflict that's raging in the outside world. Convinced that she can stop the threat, Diana leaves her home for the first time. Fighting alongside men in a war to end all wars, she finally discovers her full powers and her true destiny. Directed by Patty Jenkins, starring Gal Gadot as Diana Prince Wonder Woman, Chris Pine as Steve Trevor, Robin Wright as General Antiope, Danny Houston as General Ludendorff, and Connie Nielsen as Queen Hippolyta, Wonder Woman's mom. So let me start with you. Let's start with the positives. What we're going to do, guys, is a non-spoiler. I know we've already went in 20 minutes without even going into review, but we are going to be doing a non-spoiler, and then we'll warn you about spoilers if you haven't seen it already. So, Michael, let's start with the good, and then we'll get into the bad, if there is any.
You want my good about it?
Yes, please.
All right.
Oh, do you have good about it? Please tell me you do.
Oh, we're not going to make it through the show alive. I like the film. I like the movie a lot. And, again, we were talking about feminism and the side of it. I was watching the film and I go, you know what? The reason why I think it works so good is because the feminism, let me point this out. I don't know. I have to say this very carefully. I have grown up and I work in where me personally, I don't care, guy, girl. If you are right for the job, if you're good at what you do, that's who I'm going to work with. I don't, the first thing I ever produced, there was a woman director. My co-producer on everything that I do is a woman. So, to me, the whole, I know that sexism existed. I am fully aware. Women were not allowed to vote at one point. I'm fully aware of that. But I am biased. Let me say this very carefully, that I'm biased in that I've never witnessed that sort of sexism myself personally. Not to say that I know it exists, but I've never really witnessed it before. So I just want to say that as kind of a disclaimer before I go into what I thought about the film as far as the feminism, which was a big thing that was talked about with regards to the movie. And I think that with what Patty Jenkins was able to do, is that she made a movie about a hero. Yeah, she comes from an island of Amazonians, which is directly out of the of the comic books, directly as the story goes, and doesn't necessarily highlight. She doesn't take a yellow highlighter and make the fact that she's a woman a big part of the story. There is one scene where she comes into a room of all the guys and they sort of go, "Ooh, there's a woman in here." There's only one scene, but otherwise that's not a big part of the story. Here's what the movie's about. You have a woman, Gal Gadot, who hopefully Gal.
We asked Siri before the show, and Siri couldn't give us a straight answer. Gal Gadot.
Yeah. But it's not. She is driven by convictions. She's driven by, we're not going to let this warlord take over the planet, the god Ares, the god of war. There's this person who can help this. She's driven by righteousness. I'm sitting here, to be honest with you, I'm watching the movie knowing that Gal Gadot served 2 years in the Israeli army, and I'm going, this is actually a very Jewish movie in a very good way. She's a sense of righteousness. We have to do this. I'm like, it's very appropriate that they casted an Israeli woman to play this. I'm like, she's the co-partner with Superman, the American, what's Superman's thing? The
Man of
I'm
Steel?
blanking out here.
Man of Steel?
No, not Man of Steel. The Truth, Justice, and the American Way.
Right.
And he's always partnered with Wonder Woman. I'm thinking, oh, okay, America's ally, Israel. We put them in this movie. That's what I was thinking about. Like, that's an appropriate casting choice here. And she's like, oh, we're gonna take these guys out. I'm like, she belongs to one of those Israeli hit squads from like the movie Munich or something
really
like
does.
that.
You had to bring up Munich. I knew you would.
I honestly, that's what I was thinking about. I was like, and I think that's why it worked, because the fact that it is, Wonder Woman, it's in the title, but it's not made a big point. So Patty Jenkins in the movie Monsters, her 2003 film. Now, she has done some writing before, in between. She's done some work on the show Entourage and another TV show since 2003. But in the movie Monster, which is a very good film, a very excellent movie, and it is perverted like you wouldn't believe. And it is a very sad movie. About a very bad person. And you walk out of that film not with sympathy for this horrific person. You don't leave the film with sympathy for her. You leave the film with sympathy, or more of just a very overall sad exit of what this woman, who the character Charlize Theron plays, what she goes through, the type of emotional beating that she goes through, that drove her to the terrible, terrible things that she did. And you understand her, but you don't sit there and be like, oh, she was a bad person, and you change your opinion. No, you have a lot of sympathy for the whole situation. And it levels everything out. And with Wonder Woman, it's the same thing. Yes, it's an island of women, and yes, they're all the women on the horsebacks and their arrows, and it's like, okay, all right. But realistically, when you watch this film, especially when they're going into World War I, no man's land, by the way, which was also in War Horse, just want to point that out. I like this movie. Is that it's like when Superman shows up or the Batman shows up. It's like you have this superhero who just goes to town, and you don't, and no one makes a comment about the fact that she's a woman. And I think that's why this film, as a movie about a comic book character who is a woman, works so well, is because it's not highlighted and it's not sexualized. No. Yes, there's some innuendo jokes about, and it's from Chris Pine too. It's the whole joke, and for those who have seen it, where will you sleep with me? But she clearly knows way more about human sexuality than he. I've read the 12 volumes of God, I don't even know what it was now, but yeah. And that's the thing, they don't sexualize her character. Catwoman and Halle Berry, are you kidding me? Come on.
Just the costume alone.
Yeah, and that's why I think this film, that was really what I liked best about the film, was that, no, it's actually her belief, her sense of righteousness, her conviction. That's what I liked a lot about the film, and I think that's why this movie got so popular so quick. I mean, It's only been out for 3-4 days? Yeah. And already it's #1 movie in the world. And I think that's the reason why.
Yeah. All very good points. Yeah, I would say that, how can you get a character that does dress more skimpily than say most female superheroes out there, and how can she be taken seriously? Patty Jenkins delivered, and Gal Gadot delivered. It's just all the right ingredients, I would say, of how they did this. They were very respectful. There was no, let's show a booty shot of her. Let's not show, it's just going to be a TNA fest. If they wanted that, then they can go watch the Baywatch movie if they want, or Catwoman. That's not what this was at all. And from the trailers, I remember seeing the trailers for this. I loved the trailers for this, and it got me so nervous. I was like, we've seen all the good parts, because the DCU's reputation recently is just show all the good stuff and make us think we're going to see something, and it doesn't end up being that. That's not what this was. This movie was, and I guess the more I talk about this, the more I think about this, I want to go see it a third time. Yes, I've seen it twice already. This movie is full of heart, especially the lead character in this. She is just, despite what I thought about Gal Gadot being cast as Wonder Woman, she's brunette, and she's taller, and she was in the Israeli army or military. I would say when I saw in the Fast and Furious movies, she would be the last person I would expect to, be cast. I would say, well, why don't you just get Michelle Rodriguez? I mean, she's better build for this. And no, in Batman v Superman, she, I liked what I saw of her in there, but it wasn't enough to just say, okay, well, this is the new Wonder Woman. When she comes on screen, I'm jumping ahead here also, in full Wonder Woman gear, I'm like, there's Wonder Woman. There's Wonder Woman. That it would be like if I was watching a Batman movie or if I was watching a Superman movie, whatever. There's Wonder Woman, and she's made a believer out of me. This movie is very emotional. It is very character driven. The characters in here, especially Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, they're ones that you can relate to in a way. And what was great about Chris Pine is that, some actors, if they've been in a role before that's kind of similar, they could be typecast. I was thinking, okay, well, he's going to play Captain Kirk. He wasn't playing Captain Kirk, and I was really happy about that. I was kind of worried about that.
You said that.
Yeah. I was thinking, I've seen him in a couple other movies. I've seen him in... it's called Stretch, and he is very wild in that movie. And I know that he can play all different sorts of roles, and this one is probably one of his more serious roles, and I really enjoyed that. Apparently, I need to see the one that came out last year. It's no, despite the fact, let me go back to it. I think this has the rewatchability. When I see a movie for the first time, and maybe you can relate to this, Michael, that, I remember seeing The Dark Knight for the first time. I'm like, it's not Batman Begins. Let me go back and see it a second time. And maybe because I had to let things process. That's how my mind works, at least. I can go to bed and I keep thinking about it. And then throughout the rest of the day, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I got to see this a second time. I want to see this a second time. And I already planned on seeing Wonder Woman twice, just because I wanted to make sure that, I for things I missed, or maybe, it's the hype factor, if you will. The ratings for this were skyrocketing. They ended up being at like 93 to 94% certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which guarantees it's perfect. I'm kidding. Right. Yeah, by the critics.
Let me just point out something about Rotten Tomatoes. If it says 90%, it means that the movie is good. It doesn't mean that it is a masterpiece. And I think that's always been, when I see 90% and up, and I go, all right, so I know that I'm going to like this film. That's pretty much the one guaranteed about it. But it doesn't mean that it's, I can name a lot of movies that are in the 90% and be like, put that thing in the 70%. Come on.
I could think of movies nominated for Academy Awards last year that might have even won that I'm like, I didn't enjoy that at all. But that's my opinion. That's the great thing about movies is we can all have opinion of what we like and what we don't like. That's cool. It's like, I would relate it to sports or to taste in food. There's a flavor for everybody. I would. Yeah,
taste in food is the example I always use with movies. And I go, look, hey, do you want a Big Mac or a Whopper? What? Do you want a Big Mac or a Whopper? Oh, a Whopper. Why? Because I like him better. I rest my case. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's so many different, food chains out there. There's so many different studios out there that put up different material. And, creativity was definitely put into this film. I will say that the messages that were in this film, there's very... Okay, Batman v Superman, and the comparisons are going to be there, folks. I'm sorry. Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Man of Steel. Everybody on this show knows by now that I love Man of Steel. I really love Man of Steel, but it was a darker movie, and the material that they were dealing with is more about a alien who is a god or is treated more of a god. And, how would people react to that? And how would he end up being a hero and so forth? This one was in the same, in a different sense, and they'd put a better spin on it. I think it sends more positive messages in the sense that you can either, as quoted from the movie, you can either sit back and do nothing, or you can do something, which I think was really, symbolic of something, of everything that goes on in this world today. It really is. This is a very real movie, and when I say that, I'm talking about when they take you into the scenes of this war, of World War I, you really feel like it. You're there. I like some war movies, but this is a PG-13 movie, but they did kind of show. I mean, I've never served in the military, and I can only imagine what it would be like. Probably some of the darkest things I'd ever see. But I would say that to put that into a PG-13 movie and to have you feel like when you're seeing the injured soldiers, if you're seeing people, dying in there, if you're seeing horses being whipped, little things like that, it really gets to you. Then that's where you saw the emotions on Gal Gadot's face, or just her reaction to that. That's what sold me so much on this movie. The No Man's Land sequence, definitely would say, like I said, that's the time where we actually see Wonder Woman in full Wonder Woman gear, and everything leading up to that. She's like, I'm not going to sit back. I'm going for it, and she really did.
That's
go ahead.
Right there. I want to throw one thing in this movie did right. It's kind of a requirement of all comic book origin story movies, even though we've already met Wonder Woman in the Batman versus Superman. Is that there is a lot of screen time where you just let the characters exist on screen. You just let them be there and have a conversation. And that's so extremely important when you're doing a film like this, so that the payoff of when you do see her in the full Wonder Woman garb, even though we've seen it before, Batman versus Superman, we've seen this before, it does have like the yes, it's that payoff of like, here we go. We've been waiting for this. And it's like a comedian delivering the perfect delivery, perfect timing on a joke. Yeah. And I'll throw in there, right, is I don't know if I'm alone in thinking this way, but for Batman versus Superman, I like the film. I know people don't like it and whatever. I was like, hey, it's good. It's not great, but I thought it was good. This film, Wonder Woman, actually made Batman versus Superman a better film. It enhances the story if you watch this pseudo sequel, kind of like how Rogue One made the entire Star Wars franchise cooler, because now it's like, it's a dangerous move to do. It works or it can't work. But I thought this time it did work. Yeah,
it did. Real quick, going back to the No Man's Land sequence in there. I know we're going to try to remain spoiler free on this for right now anyway, but I will say that when she's in full costume, then you add in, and the guy who did the score is Rupert Gregson Williams, who I believe is the son of Harry Gregson Williams. He's worked with Hans Zimmer before, and like scores like The Rock, and he's done lots of Tony Scott film scores also. He has that distinct sound, but his son, I'm assuming it's his son or maybe a younger brother, I have no idea. This score was amazing. It really is. I was listening to it all day, and the score. What's great, and you can attest to this, is that there's movies that overuse scores sometimes, or they overuse themes. There's some movies where the director or whoever it is decides, okay, this is the time where I want it to just be nothing. I don't want any music in here. This is the time where I want my hero to shine. That's what they did with the Williams score. Is they added it in at that time, and it was just instrumental music, and she's just doing her thing. She's punching bullets. She's just running through at the soldiers shooting her. She's got her shield up. I'm like, badass. This is great. This is perfect. Still my favorite scene of the whole movie. And there's other scenes I really enjoyed. Overall though, I will say that, it does. I was watching Batman v Superman. Well, I was kind of falling asleep to it also, but it was such a long day on Saturday. But I would say that, I was watching and I was like, you know what? It's things like the picture in there, and just the little sections of Wonder Woman, it does add to it, because now you have, if you really want to put these movies in chronological order, it would be Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then Suicide Squad. And, well, we'll leave Suicide Squad as is right now. Watching that also last night. But, I will say that, this movie, it would be more of, should have been the kickoff from the very beginning. Not saying that Man of Steel was a bad kickoff. I think that if they would have put it in this order, it would probably, the DCU could have been differently.
Yeah, but again, I think they were wise in knowing, I hate to say it, but I think they were wise in knowing that if they put out Wonder Woman first, people would have not gone to see it.
Yeah.
And I'll say that I remember a week ago, well, now a little over a week ago, it was the weekend before Wonder Woman came out. I was somewhere and was around people, some bar, whatever. And we were talking about comic book films. We were talking about Logan and Deadpool and whatever. And then someone brought up, Wonder Woman's coming out. Every one of us, there was like 4 or 5 of us, all at once be like, dude, that's gonna suck. All of us at the same time. We're like, no, we know this is gonna tank. Because man, DCU can't make a good movie, DCU can't do this, And I mean, that was I hate to say it, but that was sort of the fault. Like, no, they're gonna mess this up.
Yep.
They're gonna mess this up like every.
Well,
all right, we've been proved wrong.
Yeah,
we've been proved wrong.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, and think about the embargo that went up. They lifted the embargo like a week ago at this time, actually. And, everybody, who doesn't know what an embargo is, it's when critics are able to screen a film. And now the new thing is for them to tweet a few comments, usually positive or sometimes in between, saying, oh, I really enjoyed the movie. Can't say anymore. You'll probably love it. But when the embargo is lifted, then it's full out, every website, every blog will put up their review out there. Rotten Tomatoes will, they'll boost with their, and to be clear, Rotten Tomatoes is a consensus of the critics. It's not just one score, total. It's just saying that, okay, out of 5 critics, 4 of them truly enjoyed it, and that's what ended up being the percentage of, how much they really liked it. It's not the same as, say, it's similar to a Metacritic score. IMDb is BS because anybody can go on there and put whatever star rating on there. It means nothing. So if anybody wants to come back, well, it's got an IMDb score of 5 out of 10. It doesn't mean crap. It really doesn't.
Oh yeah, I'll just point that out there from a filmmaking point of view. We've had, you're gonna think I'm making this up. I'm not. We've had movies that start having IMDb ratings before anyone has seen them, and I'm serious. I'm not making this up. And I have seen okay, there's always going to be a 1. Somehow, there's always going to be a 1 out of 10.
Yes, always.
I don't know how it would troll on the internet or exactly how that works. And I'm telling you right now, from experience, the movie is supposed to drop on a Friday or a Thursday. And I'm sitting there on Tuesday going, cool, we have 14 IMDb votes. No one has seen this thing. and I can testify that because I've driven producers nuts. They'll literally be like, Mike has not shown us this thing yet. Not that I don't know if I'm necessarily proud of that, but it's just
no, hey, it's okay.
Yeah, they've walked into the premiere before being like, we haven't really seen it yet. We don't know what to expect.
Yeah, but that's the point, though. There's people out there that just do it, and why they do it, I have no idea. But it's just, it's just the way of the world. But if you're going, I'm not I look at Rotten Tomatoes, anytime a movie comes out. At the same time, though, movies like Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, I was going to see no matter what. I think most people were. I think the whole critics thing was just especially with Batman v Superman, was just sort of like, I don't know. I thought it was more kind of a publicity thing. It was something for journalists to write about. Oh, the movie's getting terrible ratings and the fans are backlashing, and it's like, good. Now you have a story. I want to just quickly footnote one thing you said, because you pointed it out, and it's something that I noted too about Rupert Gregson Williams. Yeah.
He also did the soundtrack to the film Hacksaw Ridge, which came out last November. And I thought that was one of the best scores of the year. So for those who saw Wonder Woman and liked the score, definitely check out the soundtrack to Hacksaw Ridge because it is very similar. Very similar. Not exactly the theme, but the way in which the music is worked. And that's a lot of thing about composers is that the music, it's not necessarily that the music is going to sound similar. That's obviously going to be the case in a lot of cases, but it's how it is used. Mm-hmm. And if you watch the kind of subtle scenes in Hacksaw Ridge where they're just talking and they have a music that you can hear, it's very similar in how it's used. And I thought Hacksaw Ridge was the score particularly was excellent. And this one also was just like, there it is, right up there.
Yeah,
exactly what to expect.
I'll have to go back and watch that and listen to it. Doesn't sound like he's a one-hit wonder. And like I said, if this is the son of Harry Gregson Williams, then he's going to have a long, what would be the saying? A very good career ahead of him.
Yeah, there's a lot of family intermixed. Like Thomas Newman and Alfred Newman are brothers.
Right.
I think Randy Newman is their cousin, and Alfred Newman is their father, and he's got an obscene amount of awards and prestige in the movies he's done all the way back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. It's like, oh God, it like hurts to look at. So there could. I think isn't there another someone Gregson Williams, not just Henry, but I thought there was another one.
I'm not sure.
Wrong, but
I'm not sure. I mean, of course, there's John Williams, but I don't think there's any relation there at all. But if you're related to John Williams and you do take up music and composing, then I don't think it's a bad thing to have that relative in your family. I will, and definitely that's always a big thing for me is the score in a movie. We're going all over the place here, but the score to begin with. When they composed the Wonder Woman theme in Batman v Superman, it was Hans Zimmer. The girl who does the cello, I believe it is Tina Carrillo, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to see Hans Zimmer and her in concert this in a couple months, actually in a month from now. I cannot wait.
You.
I have never seen Hans Zimmer in concert before. I am dragging my wife out there, and when she hears the Wonder Woman theme now, because it's her ringtone on my phone, now she's going to be all excited because you have the #1 movie, and she loved the movie. And I'll review my rating in a little while, but I will say that that's something that always gets me excited about a movie is the theme music. Does it go with the hero? It really does with this. All right, let's go into negatives, okay, before we go into the spoilers. Do you have any negatives? If you do, it's okay, because I know I have some.
The only main thing I have, and it's kind of a negative on a lot of comic book films, and it seems they've gotten stuck in this trap. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 did it. Age of Ultron did it. Avengers did it first. I'm sure they weren't the first, but like Avengers did it. Age of Ultron did it. Winter Soldier did it. And Suicide Squad did it, where they always end up on a big battlefield and there's a big explosion that will – and Batman versus Superman, same thing. And Man of Steel. It is always a sort of like I don't know how it is that they get in this routine where the movies have to end with a giant explosion.
Yeah. You mean the explosion Ghostbuster style in the sky? Yeah.
Yeah, and Wonder Woman has the finale. We weren't supposed to do spoilers. I won't say what happens, but it was to say, here we are on a big open field, and there's going to be a lot of explosions. I was like, all right, well, we've seen it before. And
yeah.
I've always – I guess that's one of the reasons why certain films like The Dark Knight, Logan, they don't – no, Deadpool's kind of got the same, not quite, but their finales are not Armageddon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So.
Well, we were talking about this online, and for those of you that were involved in the conversation, you're going to hear it again. But I made the comment that not all superhero films have to have a world-ending event or like some kind of bad or some kind of villain that's going to destroy the world. It doesn't always have to be that way. Batman Begins, or the whole Dark Knight trilogy, is proof of that. Trying to think, even the Burton Batmans, there was never about that at all. It was just about power in general. It's just like, okay, well, I just wanted, terror and anarchy, things like that. In the words of James Bond, world domination, same old dream. Eventually Bond movies became that way, but it wasn't always about that. Especially in the more recent Daniel Craig films, it wasn't about, destroying the world. And like you've said before previously, times have changed, so it's not about that. But unfortunately for superhero movies, it's all about, okay, who's going to have the better CGI fest at the very end? Because that's something that it's almost required for a third act. And I don't think it has to be there. That would be a negative for this film. Yeah.
Actually, I'll say, and that's why, for those of you who've seen it, that's why Logan, without spoiling it, is sort of it is a bit of the conclusion of the X-Men, or at least one of the key stories of the X-Men. It was so refreshing to see, here's the final piece, and it is not an all-out. It wasn't the Return of the King. It wasn't the Hobbit Battle of Five Armies. It wasn't Return of the Jedi, where it's like the biggest battle of all time. It's just like, no, it's got its action, it's got its thrillers, it's got what you want, but without it being this sprawling, every army came forth and went at it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a minute. I would say another negative, in general, is the villains of the movie. I would say that the guy, Danny Houston, who played, I like him. I've seen him in other movies before. Coincidentally, he was in a Wolverine movie before also. Not the good one either. He was Stryker. He was Stryker in X-Men Origins. Wolverine X-Men Origins.
I saw it, but you're...
Yeah,
Continue.
just be glad. just move past it. Dr. Poison, I guess, was okay. I forget the actress who played her. But I would say those are the main things. But the movie went by so fast. It was a movie that was over 2 hours and 15 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes, and the pacing of it just flew by so quick that when it ended, I wanted more. And that's not a negative, I guess, but it was just the only little things were the villains, I would say, in that part of the third act. You know what? Do you have anything to add before we go into spoilers?
No, I kind of like the twist because you didn't see it coming.
Okay. All right. So
so as far as the villains goes, I was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, because the whole, the concept of the devil wants to be your best friend.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
That's what I liked about. Just spoil it already.
Yeah. All right. All right. Spoiler alert. You have been warned. Spoiler alert. Okay. So let's talk about the villain of this. Originally, I guess, as it was sold we were led to believe this. I mean, they never said, this is your villain of the week. The guy Ludendorff, or General Lord Ludendorff, he was, made to look like the main villain of the movie. Like I said, I liked the guy, and I wish we would have seen, I don't see how we could have really seen more of him, but I guess, he was out to he was out to terrorize the world. I don't think maybe it was the world domination in a way. It was this movie, World War I, and I'm not a history buff here, but it came down to chemical weapons. And that's what him and his, chemical biologist. Yeah, exactly.
Crony,
yeah. That's what they were trying to create, is a chemical weapon to end the war and to just, destroy, or I guess kind of destroy everybody, or as many soldiers as possible in a way, or civilians. And to that extent, I did like that. But it was, I guess, trying to figure, after we realized that Ludendorff wasn't it, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of saw that coming, but it was who ended up being the main villain. And the villain, he was the politician. And do you remember the name of him?
Yes, Sir Patrick, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Sir Patrick, yeah.
Yeah.
Played by David Thewlis?
Right. We are so bad with names.
Willis, I think is his name.
Okay.
I think he was, for fame in a lot of the Harry Potter films, but in recent years he was Warhorse in Theory of Everything, who is the real villain of the story.
Right.
Who is this Ares god of war. Right.
And the main villain is Ares. And what I liked about that is, what was leading up to that is it was very evident, and it was told straight up to us, saying, okay, here's who your villain is going to be, Ares. And what I liked is, all the way from the very beginning, is how they give the backstory of how Zeus came and created man, and then you have Ares, who's total dick, and he wants to ruin everything, and he wants to corrupt and turn everybody against each other. And then Zeus used all his power, the rest of his power, to kind of defeat Ares to a point, but there was always the belief that he would come back to life. And then the Amazonians, especially her mom, or Diana's mom, was very protective of her. She led this sheltered life, which was very clear, which Gal Gadot portrayed so well, because you had that belief that, oh, well, she's kind of like this. She's not obviously a damsel in distress. She's somebody who wants to fight. She wants to learn she's very eager to learn how to train, but at the same time she's like living on this deserted island full of women, the Amazonians, and it's called Themyscira, and she like I said, her mom's very protective of her, but she has no idea what's out there in this world. The world she knows is just all peaches and cream. It's all puppy dog tails and whatever else. What's going out there is, as Chris Pine said, it's, the war to end all wars, excuse me.
Which was the name of World War I.
Yes. And, he sold it so well on his description of it as he's being tied up by the lasso of truth, which I really like their explanation of what that was. Cause to anybody who didn't know what that was, and I had heard of it, but I really had no idea what it was. They gave a very simple explanation. It's a rope that lights up, you tie it around somebody and makes them tell the truth like a polygraph. And he made it work so well because he was delivering his lines so serious when he had to, but he's like, how is it doing this? It was so good.
And that's a classic Wonder Woman object. And again, you all know, oh yeah, she has that rope, but the movie makes it very appealing. It makes it, it makes something that we all know, we all recognize, and it makes it fun.
Yes. The explanation of everything, like I said, the explanation of who Diana is, to a point, how she was created. Oh, well, she was created by clay, or her mother carved her out in clay. It's like, that's neat. And it kind of left it at that. And that's something that the authors, or Patty Jenkins and the writers of this decided, you know what, we don't want to go into a full backstory of her. We want to do more of a character-driven story, just saying the psychology of Wonder Woman, or why she believes what she believes. And that's exactly what they did with this film. I liked, because obviously I'm a Bond fan, I liked the character of Steve Rogers because he was a spy and very James Bond-like. And if you really look at this film, it does have the qualities of a spy movie. It's not just a superhero movie. Mm-hmm. It has very much spy. We're going on a mission to go, kill. Well, yeah, they're trying to kill a god at the end of the day, but they're trying to take down like a main bad guy, and they're trying to assassinate him. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. So I know I'm going on. I want your 2 cents on that.
Well, that's a great way to. It's a comic book film. It's a comic book film, so we expect, you expect the main tropes of the genre. You expect the motifs to be there, but but what you just said is one of the things that makes it more cool is that it's actually this is a covert operations spy movie. Oh, that's neat. Like Doctor Strange, it's a redemption story, and it's got all the psychedelic add-ons to it. There's more substance to it than it just being your standard comic book film.
Right. Yes. Superhero movies now, and we could thank the Dark Knight trilogy. We could thank the MCU for this. Is that especially MCU? I'll give them credit where credit is due. A superhero movie isn't just a superhero movie. There's different genres of superhero movies. Now there's the spy superhero movie. Now there's more of the dark comedy. Now there's the more bloody drama, if you will. Logan would be the example of that. Deadpool would be the other example of a rated R comic book comedy movie. And that's what's so great about this is that, it does have, it is a superhero movie, but it's something more.
And comic book, well, see, I always call them, what am I saying? I always call them more of a comic book film, and the comic book film is maturing because if you were to ask about what a superhero movie is, I go, A Beautiful Mind. What? A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. That's a superhero movie.
Mm-hmm. James Bond.
Yeah. You could, there's plenty. Superhero movies is actually a very broad genre if you really want to think about as far as genres go.
Right.
And I think the comic book films have – they found their audience. They kept their audience. People are always going to go back to see them. But now they're getting much more creative. And actually, as you were mentioning that thing on Twitter, whatever was happening, here I'm at work and I'm getting 17 notifications a minute. But I don't know how to use Twitter, by the way. I'm just kind of like figuring this out. I'm like, I'll just respond. Say what you will, whether you like Civil War or not. But the Marvel was able to put out a film in which, before walking into it with the publicity and the hype and the marketing of it, it had already split its audience between Team Captain and Team Iron Man. Mm-hmm. And during the film, you are deciding who you want to vote for. You can't sit through this movie, Wonder Woman, and be like, well, I kind of want the German guy to win. No, you want to see Wonder Woman win. But with Captain America: Civil War, hey, what's your political view? Huh? What's your political view? That's how you're going to decide. Mm-hmm. And then you have Deadpool, who just straight up puts Hugh Jackman on his face and starts making jokes about him being Australian. What are you going to do? Stop me from mocking this franchise. Oh, and by the way, don't, then he'll turn around and mock DC. Don't make me green like Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
What? Someone just did that in a movie? Yeah, and I made more money than everyone else. So the
superhero landing.
yeah. And so comic book movies have, especially in the last few years, just been like, you know what? Forget the genre motifs. Go for it. Mm-hmm. Just go. And again, that's where you saw Batman versus Superman. Screw it. Have them fight.
Yep.
Have them fight. So
Dark Knight. I mean, prime example. Let's have a superhero movie grounded without all the superpowers and just set in what could be a real city, Gotham City. Well, filmed in your town, actually, Chicago. So, and
big thing. And I think that's something else is that, because of, it was you say about, the MCU and the hype. So, of course, Batman Begins was filmed partially here, and a lot of The Dark Knight was filmed here. A lot of The Dark Knight. And then a lot of bits of Man of Steel and bits of Batman versus Superman. So this could be from my own bias, but when Man of Steel was coming out in 2013, the hype for that was real. The hype was outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Not only because I had friends who were telling me about, they were in it and all this stuff. By around Christmas time, I was hearing about this film. Came out in summer. It wouldn't stop because I had friends who were in it,
Yeah.
But the hype was so real that when it did come out, the thunder was kind of pulled away because it was so. We could talk about that another time, but the violence of it and the and then. Okay, you can always have a misstep, and when Batman versus Superman seemed to do the same thing critically, I'm speaking critically,
mm-hmm.
You kind of had the expectations, and then Suicide Squad. Just again, the critically these films were tanking. So to finally have them for the DC Comics, to put out a film that is good, that doesn't have glaring flaws, but I guarantee you within 3 days from now, you'll start seeing people trash Wonder Woman. But for the most part, this film does not have what trolls. This film is currently considered the best of the four.
Yeah.
So and I just wanted to point that out, and that the hype for Wonder Woman was not as strong as the other three. Because the other three, the hype was through the roof. By this one, no one gave it a shot, and then suddenly turn around and be like, "Oh, actually, it's really good." I wouldn't be surprised. I could be wrong in this, and you can check back on this in 3-4 weeks, a month from now. But I wouldn't be surprised if Wonder Woman makes more money than the other four in the American domestic box office.
All right. That'll be my homework project. To pull the numbers and keep track of that. Even the characters like Batman and Superman, are going to sell tickets, as I've heard on many shows and read a lot about, which is pretty obvious. You just say Batman, boom. You can have a Lego Batman movie, you can have a Batman cartoon, whatever, and it's going to be successful. Same with Superman. Wonder Woman would, definitely sells T-shirts and it can be marketed very easily, but a movie was different. And the problem that Wonder Woman fell into, and it's not its own fault, is because of the movies that came before it in the DCEU. Not as well critically received. They were always mixed when it came, when it came to the fanboys. Boy, do not say anything bad about Man of Steel. Boy, do not say anything bad about Batman v Superman. Suicide Squad.
I'm looking. I just pulled up Box Office Mojo on the screen, and if we do just the total gross adjusted for ticket price and I don't need to look at that just yet. See, Wonder Woman is 103 currently, and the next one up is Man of Steel with 291 million. That's just in the domestic box office, unadjusted
for opening weekend.
No, for total gross.
Okay,
I think that Wonder Woman will have legs. No pun intended. I told you our careers are over by the time we put this podcast out. I think that Wonder Woman is going to maintain an audience, unlike the other ones where their audience slowly dissipated. Where Wonder Woman's going to be able to stay around. I don't see Cars 3 pulling a lot of audiences away from Wonder Woman. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't see The Mummy. The Mummy comes out this week, and I don't see that. And it's Tom Cruise. I don't see this movie going anywhere. I mean, the big thing will be is if it the percentage drop off that it has on its second week. That's always a big thing. Batman v Superman had one of the biggest drop offs. Suicide Squad made a lot of money, even though a lot of people didn't care for it. Man of Steel was it was 2013, so I was paying attention to it, but I know it wasn't as successful as everybody thought it was going to be because they thought, oh well, Superman, it's going to make lots of money. Well, it just wasn't what everybody wanted. I personally really love Man of Steel. I really, really love. I'll say I love Wonder Woman. I really do. The more I think about it, and I guarantee you, next time I watch it, I'm probably going to find even more things that I like about it, probably, and maybe a few things that I don't. I have no idea. But I would say that this movie is one that a lot of people will go see in theaters at least a couple times. Online, I think a lot of people already have seen it at least 3 times. And, for competition in June, I think that it's definitely going to make its money back without a doubt. And I think it's not going to be the biggest, the top grossing movie of the year. It didn't have to be, but the fact that it received such, critical praise and that audiences, that overall, Joe Schmo, everybody and the critics loved this or really enjoyed this movie, that says a lot.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And again, that's where I don't know what's going to be the number one take of the year, Last Jedi, let's be honest.
It could be. Hey,
I'm so tired.
In a world where Jurassic World could make that much money and an Avatar is still holding the record, anything goes. It really does.
Yeah, no, this is true. This is very, very true.
But think about everything that's in this movie, Michael. It's a comic book movie mixed with World War I and a spy movie. I mean, and a love story. All in one.
Spider-Man. I was actually I'm flipping through here looking at what's coming up. You have Despicable Me 3, but I think that I hate saying it. These are multi-million-dollar things in here. I'm like, I can't do that. I've worked close enough to know what millions of dollars looks like. So I hate to speak, so despairingly of it all. But I'm looking at here, the only mega blockbuster that I really see on the horizon is Spider-Man: Homecoming.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
You don't think
the reason why is because how Spider-Man movies have done more recently. Because not everybody knows that there's a new Spider-Man. The nerds do.
Maybe. I don't know. You know what? Actually, I'm just side note here, but still relevant. I'm amazed at the hype right now for Dunkirk.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I know it's coming out, whatever, but people who are just moviegoers. Now, I work with a lot of film people, and I know that, dude, if you've ever been to an Oscar party in Hollywood and you are literally the only one to have seen the Best Picture winner, I know what that's like. I'm just sitting around this room going, has anyone seen Moonlight? No. So to have all these film people be going like, oh, you know what? That Dunkirk, I want to see that. Oh, really? Yeah. Who's the director, by the way? I don't know, but it looks good. I wouldn't be surprised if Dunkirk. I don't know. I was surprised by how many of my friends who are film people who don't really, know all the ins and outs, all seem to be fixated on Dunkirk. So maybe Christopher Nolan. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought up at least Christopher Nolan, because I would say right now, Patty Jenkins falls into that category of the female Christopher Nolan. What do you think about that? And the reason I say that is because you have an indie director, and I would consider Monster an independent movie, more or less. I haven't seen it, but I've seen enough trailers, and I know just enough about it to say that's not a big budget movie. And Christopher Nolan,
it's definitely not.
Yeah, Christopher Nolan was not a big budget director. He started off small, as do most directors, and then they end up, having that one big movie. This is at least, Patty Jenkins' Batman Begins.
Oh yeah, I would say that. I'm just flipping through here. Her Entourage and The Killing, which was a Netflix thing. A lot of smaller stuff here. Yeah, I mean, you could certainly say that this is the movie that made her. I mean, and you got to wonder, like, man, 2003, nothing. I mean, Monster won the Academy Award for Best Actress and Golden Globe for Best Actress, and it's nothing to scoff at. It is lower budget. It is, but it doesn't not like it needs a higher production value. But this could put her on the map for something larger, and I guess now they're making the thing, the biggest, the record-breaking biggest woman director's opening. I'm like, what was the competition? A Nora?
Do you know
Ephron
what the
comedy?
competition was? Because I do. Yeah.
You do? Yeah. Tell me, please, because I was curious
50
to know.
Shades of Grey by Sam Taylor Johnson. $85 million. If it didn't beat that, then I can only imagine what she was thinking. She's like, that smut movie was gonna. It has, my movie wasn't gonna beat that. Oh my god! If that happens, then I quit.
Yeah. No. I just.
Yeah, but no, she's. I'm sure she's at Warner Brothers. If she wasn't at Warner Brothers Studios today, she will be there by the week's end with a nice little bonus check. Say this. Thank you, and you do one for us, and we do one for you.
Oh yeah, no, she and her authorship, again, only being that I've seen Monster, her authorship is present in this movie.
Yeah.
Again, Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, and Batman vs Superman. I hate to say it, they're very similar. You can line them up and cut them apart like a TV show, and it will work out flawlessly. Mm-hmm. That's why I think Patty Jenkins is, as a writer, her themes are in the story narrative. Yeah. But visually, aesthetically, I think Suicide Squad, which again, you could add, and it does flow into that TV show. It's the only one that visually looks different as far as the DCU movies go. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
This one, though, and I always get surprised by this, is, people say what they want about Zack Snyder. A lot of people, he's always been split, I think, especially with Man of Steel, which I still think is the better one out of Batman v Superman. I think he did produce Suicide Squad, and he definitely produced this, but he wrote the original draft for this. It was his conception.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, wow, that's really interesting, because visually, I always say that he can do really well when it comes to his films. When it came to storytelling, not so well. But here he helped write this movie, but I'm sure he probably wrote like a first draft to this, and then Patty Jenkins came in and tweaked it the way she wanted to, because they said the producer Charles Roven, who did the whole Dark Knight trilogy and up to the rest of the DCU movies up till now, he was saying that it took a long time, but we wanted to get it right, and we feel like we did. And hey, however long it takes for a sequel, because Patty Jenkins is contracted for Wonder Woman 2. Does that mean she is going to come back? Well, if she's contracted, you probably know more about that than I do.
Here's what I know about it. You never know. You never know. That's the one guaranteed. The movies, as far as movies being contracted, this is my favorite story. There was some kid, his name was Leonardo DiCaprio. He's flipping through the newspaper one day, and he saw an ad for a movie called Gangs of New York by a director named Martin Scorsese. He's like, that'd be kind of cool. I'd like to see that. Back in the 70s.
Yeah.
You ever see the movie Gangs of New York? Do you know who the lead character is?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah. Okay. So much for the movies and the contracting and all that. Yeah. It's never a given. Show me even when you see a trailer, they can still push that back for 6 months.
Oh yeah, they do all the time. Happen. Yeah. Everybody's like, what happened to that movie? Yeah.
No, literally, I don't believe anything until you actually see it. And I've sat there through test screenings and stuff, and I sit there wondering, like, oh my God, is that really going to be how they're going to leave it or whatnot? So, I mean, the only guaranteed is that nothing is guaranteed.
Right.
And the one thing, if I can throw in there, because I was thinking about is what you were talking about with Patty Jenkins, again, how visually, with the story, there's the scene where the doctor, what was her name? The actress who plays the doctor, the chemist.
I know who you're talking about. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
For those listening who are kind of going, Dr. Maru. Dr. Maru is the character's name, played by Elena Anya. Mm-hmm. Shut up. Stop butting in on our convo.
Sorry, Siri.
Yeah,
sorry,
Mike, we're talking. Yeah, hey viewers, this is a full feminist show. He just kicked the girl out of here, even though she's a robot. Is that Wonder Woman? They show this character who you see with the pieces over her face, and that the mask flies away, and that's where she realizes that sympathy again comes into play of this character who is who's damaged goods, pretty much.
Yeah,
that's something that. Definitely, I don't know. I can't say for certain, but when I saw that, I was like, that's something that I feel Patty Jenkins would attempt, again, only based off of the fact that I'd seen Monster. Right. And knowing how she treated characters in that story. It's very character-driven from what I gather.
Yeah. Going back into the characters or just the story of this, I wanted to talk more about it just in the fact that Gal Gadot, it's just seeing her as a little kid in the movie, as younger Diana, as she's growing up in the training. One person I almost forgot to highlight is Robin Wright. And I know you're a House of Cards fan. Robin Wright is a badass.
Yeah, and actually, you know what, to tell you the truth, again, with the whole thing about this Wonder Woman movie is going to be terrible. I saw the picture of Robin Wright in the costume. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, I remember that picture. I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, no, that's my first lady. That's just so.
That's Mrs. Underwood.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I just was like, this looks so stupid. And then I'm watching the movie and be like, okay, I like it. And that was the one thing about it I didn't care for. I was like, I wish we had more Robin Wright in this.
Me too.
And I meant to look this up. Shame on me for not looking this up before I came on. I wanted to know what that accent was. Now,
I don't know.
Is that an Israeli accent that they're all doing?
I think they did. I heard just a rumor that they did that on purpose because of Gal Gadot's accent to make it just kind of sound that way. Are you there?
Well, yeah. Okay. And I thought that was a great choice because I was like, hey, because again, now you're like, if it's so masked. Which it was, and then you're pulled away by the fact that you're looking at Robin Wright.
Right.
Suddenly now you're more focused on it's this character.
Right.
That's what helps me.
She, like I said, I wish that she was in more of the film. I really do, but she went out in a blade of glory. She Gal Gadot's reaction to when she died, I was like, wow, she must have taken acting lessons. I have no idea. Or we just never had a chance to really see her. And it's a Fast and Furious movie. But everything, the emotions that she was able to portray in that. It was a fish out of water movie for both characters, for Chris Pine's Steve Rogers when he came to the Amazonian island. And I think that he was, normally we would have expected Wonder Woman to be the, I guess, how do you say it? Sex symbol in this. It was Chris Pine that was, because he's the one without his clothes on.
Yeah, no. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, me too, right? Well, I mean, I bet you did.
Here we go. There it is. That's the angle. Okay, so we're going to do a movie about a comic book character who's a woman, but I'm going to make the guy take off his clothes. I like that. I bet that was very intentional.
Oh, yeah. And then, and the inviting into the bedroom too? Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't make that connection until you mentioned it.
As soon as I saw it for the first time I saw that, I'm like, one, my wife's going to love this, which she did. Two, because Chris Pine is very easy on the eyes. Two, it's just it's role reversal. It really is. When she was laying on the sailboat with him, she's like, "Oh, aren't you going to sleep next to me?" Whatever it was. He's like, "Well, but I like what he did so well in his line delivery, or it's how it was written, how it was directed, and because he's such a good performer, his delivery of, trying to explain everything to Diana. He is obviously a guy who's seen his share of bad things. This is the life that he's living, and that's the quote I said is, his father made that quote. You can either stand around and do nothing, or you can do something. He chose to do something. He's serving his country. He's a spy, and it's one of the darkest times ever at that time. And he's trying to help end this war. He knows that they're probably going to die, but he's willing to sacrifice himself. And at the same time, Diana is trying to get into the fight. She wants to go right for the main guy. She wants to find Ares. And he's like, you have no idea what's about to happen, what we're about to get into. Everything from London. Oh, it's hideous. Well, it's not for everybody. That's subtle humor right there. You don't have to have the, oh, well, it's London, and, in London, it's da-da-da. They didn't do that. And that's going back to the comparison of Nolan. Nolan never had jokes just to have them in there. He had just casual conversation. We'll have this kind of, whatever kind of joke in there, but, just not to have it just because we're just trying to get a laugh.
Right. No, humor's the best when you're trying not to be funny.
Yes, it always works out well. But yeah, about the whole, what you said about, it wasn't Kama Sutra, but I forget the name of the 12 books that she read. But she's like, yeah, I've read all 12 of them. And yeah, but women are needed for procreation, but for pleasure, women, can do it on their own. I was like, wow. I was like, all right, that's good stuff. It really is. And, I'm sure all the women in there are just laughing their asses off because they probably know it's true.
And it's in such good jest. I mean, if you want to, I was telling this to someone over the weekend about, because something about race came up, and I said, you want to deal with race, just start making the most racist jokes as you can and accept that it's going to be thrown right back at you. And I've said, it's just like, once you let that stuff fly and people can start laughing at it and at themselves, that's what makes it, that's what makes these kind of hot button topic issues, it sort of takes the edge off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because laughter, I don't know about other people. When I get sick, when I start to get sick, phone comes out, Pandora comes on, and it's the stand-up comedy radio because I have to get myself in a better frame of mind. You have to laugh about stuff. And I think the movie and again, this is where it's a feminist film. I feel weird saying that, but it's such a pro-woman film without smashing it in people's faces.
Right. Because
it's that they exist. I'm going to throw two other films out there, which are about true stories. This is Aaron Brockovich. And Changeling. The movies are based off of true stories. In fact, I think that they're pretty fairly accurate to a T, especially Changeling. I know that they went out of their way to make sure it was as accurate as possible. But that they're stories about women the stories about mothers who are trying to fix a problem. In the sense of Aaron Brockovich, it's a legal thing. In the sense of Changeling, it's because her son was kidnapped. It's a very brutal movie. It's a fantastic film. Very brutal. But it is such an incredible story that, again, yes, you can call it a very pro-feminism movie, but that's not what you take out of it leaving the film. You take out this incredible inspirational, encouraging story about a mother trying to find her son. And then I speak specifically about the film Changeling with Angelina Jolie, is that's what you exit the film with. It's not about it being a giant feminism piece. And Wonder Woman is the same thing in that it is a feminism movie, but without it basically being a big issue, because you as the audience member, again, no man's land, you are cheering, you are excited when she takes the battlefield. And that's because you're like, that's a superhero. It is, I'm sorry, it's cool when she knocks the guy through the wall. It's cool
great. People
watching
were cheering
her develop
the second
her powers.
time I saw it,
Yeah, it's cool. It's neat. It's like when Tony Stark, Iron Man, figures it out, or when when the character just does something so cool that the audience starts cheering. And those are the best moments. Believe me, they're the best moments. And you have that in Wonder Woman. And by default, because of that, it's a great pro-woman movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that makes sense?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
And the message, like you said, about at the very end, it went through. It was still dark in certain times, and like I said, at the war, when it came for the war, and just seeing the effects of war. That's and we're seeing this as Diana had never seen anything like this before, and she wants to help everybody. She's like, well, why can't I help this? It's like, come on, Diana, we have to keep moving. We have to keep moving. And she's like, well, I thought the war, what I did was going to stop the war. No, it's not. I wish it would, but it can't. That's just the way it is. And that's something that, her character did, kind of realize that at the very end, saying, okay, well, guess what? You can't save everybody, and everybody can try to do their part to a point. The message of hope. This is something, I mean, you could say I took that from Star Wars, but it really is what, Wonder Woman stands for, is hope.
Right. And that's one of the best parts of the film, is exactly what you're talking about, is this whole, she wants to go in right for the kill. And many times throughout the movie, I'm like, Chris Pine, can you just sit her down for 1 second, explain to her strategy? You can't. No, you have to. It wouldn't be politics, but it would be, you have to do things in a certain order to accomplish it. You can't necessarily go straight. There's a line Abraham Lincoln said at some point, if the compass points you north, but it doesn't tell you about the chasms and the rivers and the swamps that you have to get through. So what's the use of knowing true north if you don't know those things?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's one of the lessons from the film, is that just because you can go in there for the kill and end it all quickly, or you kill Ares or what she thinks, you have to do things appropriately. You have to do them in a certain order, and you have to do them with wisdom.
Right. And that the whole movie, she's just trying to, as soon as she leaves the island, she's like, well, take me to the no man's land, take me to the front. And it's like, no, we have to go here first, and then we can go here. And, it was so well. And it's just, the Fish Out of Water story never gets old, in my opinion, but it's just the different adaptations that they can do with it, and that's what they did with this. So it was so well done. I liked, different from other DCU movies, there was no flashbacks aside from sort of one, and it leads to, Steve Trevor saying that he does love her, which, got everybody sappy, probably including me. And his sacrifice at the very end, and, I think it was necessary. I know the characters, very big in the Wonder Woman comics and even the TV show, but that leads more, I think, better into Batman v Superman, what got her to that point there, and now in Justice League, which hopefully will be really, really good. So I'm trying to think what else I have. Over 100 million in opening week. I think that it does make Batman v Superman better. To a point, anyway. I think that I'm still nervous about Justice League. I really am. I don't think it will be as good as Wonder Woman. And I think they're going to be saying that a lot now about the DCU movies, depending on if Patty Jenkins is directing it, or in general with comic book movies. It wasn't Wonder Woman. I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think that I'm trying to think. Every movie in any franchise is always to get compared to the best. Once one sort of triumphs the mountaintop, it's always going to be compared to that. Right. I did want your one last take on this. If Patty Jenkins would have directed this, or if a woman wouldn't direct this, do you think that would have affected it? Things would have been different.
If it was a different director in general, or if it was a different woman director.
If it was a male director, do you think it would have been? I'm toying with that idea.
Oh, I can't say this on radio.
Yeah.
I can't.
No, and the reason I just say that is because
any director, I'll lose my. Any director would have given it a different style.
Yeah. A Christopher Nolan Wonder Woman, a Joss Whedon Wonder Woman. Joss Whedon was the closest we ever had to possibly getting this movie greenlit, and he was the one who praised this movie on Twitter.
I'm going to ask who directed Catwoman, and then I remembered that the director of Catwoman, the one with Halle Berry, I don't know who the person was. It was just a one-name director.
They're in a bomb shelter right now on the set of Wonder Woman, and they're just still in hiding.
The director of the movie was P. Toff. Oh, it is a guy. Interesting. Okay, moving on. Of Catwoman. There could have been some backlash over it, of course. Honestly, could there have been? Yeah, probably. I mean, you see that. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but you see that all the time.
Right.
When, here's one. When Steven Spielberg did the color purple, oh my God, it's a white man doing come on, and that was a big thing. And Color Purple was one of the first of its series. Over the last 30 years, you've seen movies very similar to that come out. But there's an example of before he even began, it was in controversy.
Right.
Or, what is wasn't there one about, I'm trying to think, a Jew or a Christian doing a movie about.
Oh, Passion of the Christ. No.
Well, that was a Catholic doing a very Catholic movie that upset Jewish people. But there again, before it was made, and it was a controversial thing. But yeah, you see that all the time when. Actually, I remember one brought up was that when there was at one point Paul Greengrass was supposed to do something about the death of Martin Luther King. And I just remember a film professor going, a white Brit going to do our story? Oh, good point. Good point. Well, he's the only one that got the American stories. Right? Never mind. But, it's like that can be a thing. So is it – I don't know.
I think anything's possible. I think that it is a triumph for the studio, for Patty Jenkins, for women's superhero or female superheroes to come, for Gal Gadot, for everybody, for the whole. Like I said, high praise, high kudos to the whole crew. This is just something that it took so long, but you know what? It paid off, and I really hope that it does. I'm sure it did succeed. I think that I hope it makes a lot of money. I really do. And I hope that the message that people continue to take the message that at least I took out of it and that you took out of it. All this whole sexism BS can,
it's
whatever.
Stupid. Honestly, it's a stupid argument because if the person makes a good movie, it's a good movie.
Right.
Okay. The gender or the race, who cares? Okay. One of my favorite directors is Catherine Bigelow. Okay.
Ooh, good one.
That woman has done some incredible, especially tough. You ever seen the movie Strange Days with Ray Fiennes? Whoa, that's a tough movie.
Yeah.
You think a woman director? I just think, and again, as I said early on, for those of you who made it this far, to me, the gender or the race, that shouldn't matter.
Oh,
it
never should.
Really doesn't matter. Now, if I'm doing a historical film, I am not going to cast Halle Berry to play George Washington. Okay. Obviously, but the gender of the director or the race of the director, that just seems, the fact that it's an issue nowadays, it seems stupid to me. It seems so dumb. And it's like, hey, if they do a really good job,
right.
That's my take on it. And I thought, for example, The Color Purple, that was a great movie. Great movie. Yeah. It was done by a white Jewish guy. Big deal.
Yeah. Like we say, at the end of the day, all we want is a good movie, no matter, who's directing it or writing it, whatever. Or a cast, as long, that was the person that fit that part. It might not have been the person that everybody wanted, but somehow, it might have worked. So
exactly.
There you have it.
Yeah.
There you have it. I was going to try to do my Wonder Woman tournament update. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add with the film? I know we're running a little longer here than I thought.
No. If you ask me a question, I'll rant for another 5 minutes if you want me to.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'll let you finish your show.
I will say this, that the Wonder Woman tournament is full of surprises. I will save it for the next show, but I will be tweeting out the results to that. Birthdays and anniversaries, I will go through super rapid fire here. Isabella Scoruppo, who played Natalia Semyonova in GoldenEye, celebrated her birthday on June 4th. Yes, she liked my picture, and yes, she said thank you on my post on Instagram, which just made my week, or maybe even month. Jeffrey Palmer, who played Admiral Roebuck in Tomorrow Never Dies, celebrated her birthday also on June 4th. Malcolm Sinclair, who played Dryden in Casino Royale, celebrated a birthday on June 5th. Anthony Stark, who played Truman Lodge in License to Kill, celebrated a birthday on June 6th. Tom Jones, yes, that Tom Jones, who performed the theme to Thunderball, celebrated a birthday on June 7th. Nancy Sinatra, who performed the opening title to You Only Live Twice, celebrated a birthday on June 8th. Bernie Casey, who played Felix Slater in, well, you know what, I usually don't mention this movie, but it happened to be in my show notes, Never Say Never Again, celebrated a birthday on June 8th. And Luciana Polizzi, who I had the pleasure of meeting last year, played Fiona Volpe in Thunderball, celebrates a birthday on June 10th. Whew, okay. got that done. We will, unfortunately, I think that wraps it up for this episode. We get to everything we wanted to, aside from my dog barking.
Oh, yeah, we're good. I think
we hit everything we wanted to.
I'm not lying. I have my phone open. I'm going through your Instagram feed, trying to find the thing that you were talking about.
No, I'm not talking about the Batman on the unicorn. I'm not talking about that. That's for.
No, I was looking for the bonger who liked your photo. I was going to send her a message and be like, "Hey."
I swear, Natalia Semyonova, the actress who played her, I did like my picture. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm looking for that. I got other priorities. You can log out of here. I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
Bye.
So that wraps it up for this episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. Please subscribe on Spreaker, iTunes, rate it 5 stars, and leave a nice review for me on there. I would very much appreciate it. The biggest thing that I always ask is that you share the show with your friends, your family, anybody that's the fan of Batman and Bond, Wonder Woman, and DCU. Michael, I appreciate you coming back on the show. I can't thank you enough. I know we were trying to figure out something to talk about, and this is a true story. We were toying with the idea, what can we talk about? And I said, hey, you want to come on for the Wonder Woman movie review? And he's like, yes, I would love to. And then he was throwing out ideas, and I'm like, oh my God! I think he did more research than he had to, but
I love it. I know
that you do because you are definitely. Well, you obviously are more than just a film fan. You are a director, producer, and writer. Where can people find you?
In the under the underpass, under the expressway, Chicago, right. South Side, Chirac.
Nice.
But I also have a LinkedIn page. You may connect with me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Twitter, Facebook. What else do I have? Oh, Instagram, yeah. Whatever else is out there, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty accessible.
Yep. And also, your book is The Films of Sam Mendes, under 1 hour. Once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Please stop thanking me. I've had it's an honor to be here. It's a lot of fun being here.
Always love talking to you, man. You're always welcome on the show. You know that. And you can follow me on all the various social media networks at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Batman vs. Bond. I might post maybe 1, maybe 5 posts a day, depending on the kind of day it is. Find the show at BatmanVSBond.com and on the BS Podcast Network. Also, be sure to check out all the other great programming on there, including Science Faction Podcast, Unpopular Culture Podcast, and Nerds with Words Podcast. And don't forget to buy a t-shirt. Like James Bond, I will return. Until next time, I'm Brian Thomas. Michael Jolls, thank you again, sir. And thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
The preceding podcast is part of the BS Podcast Network. Visit bspodcastnetwork.com for more shows just like this one, and perhaps a few that are just a little bit better.